Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League Show podcast. I am your host, the self-proclaimed FPL guru, Alex Rex, and joining me today are my usual suspects, Barry Stokes and Scott Williams. Barry, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I did a cully actually, thinking I was going to be a team of the week, and then I scrolled down. I was like, I'm not. So yeah.
At least he was second. I think you were third in the end, I think.
Oh well, Sod's law, isn't it?
Still not doing bad in the league, though, Barry. And Scott, nice of you to join us, even though your camera is still acting like you're on a rave. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. How are you doing?
I don't don't sound 100%. So sorry to everybody this week. I think I've been attacked by hay fever. But thank you ever so much for joining us this week. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to wherever you get your podcast from, and also to follow us on our YouTube channel, which we had quite a lot of views over the last 4 weeks. So thank you ever so much for everyone that's been joining in and watching and contributing. It's been great, and also on our social media platforms on the pod for Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and we will keep putting out some controversial reels. Because I put a few up there too, a bit of clickbait, mostly for Cully, to be honest. But I've put a few up recently, and they've had great interaction. So thank you very much for joining us and contributing there. Should we get straight on with Team of the Week, Baz?
Yeah.
Lewis Evans, talk through the team for podcast listeners, please. Before I lose my voice.
Yeah, no worries. So Edison in goal got 3 points. Dallo must have done a straight swap with Shaw. Got 14 points on that. Stones as well. That's a good pick going forward. Got 8. Double Newcastle defence didn't do as good as before. Got 1 and a 0 from Trippier and Shaw. And then midfielders and Andres Pereira got 2. Martinelli 5. Salah 14. Odegaard 10. Haaland was the captain with 24 points, and then Darwin came on and scored and got 5.
It's a good team for Lewis Evans, that Salah and Darwin delivering Dallo with his first goal in the Premier League. It's always nice when something like that happens to your team, isn't it? But yeah, so it's a good team all along. He's got Trent on his bench as well, so looking decent moving forward after watching that Leeds performance and then analysing Trent's performance itself. Yeah, 86 points, game week rank of 89 in the world out of 11 million. So that's really, really good. Quick touch on the pod league before we crack on to game week 32 and 33, which we'll be covering both of this week because it's a midweek game week 33. So we won't record again before the kickoff of that week and that deadline. So we'll be covering 2 weeks this week, but don't worry, we'll condense it down nicely to get through it all and answer all your questions, which I had a lot of this week after I said I didn't have many last week. I've got loads of questions this week to factor in. So thank you so much to everyone who's contributed there. I really appreciate it. Dave Byrne, top 24 points clear of Barry Stokes, the man, the myth, and Jeff Belcher, 20 points further back. So that's the top 3 so far. So it's very close going forward, especially considering I don't think Dave Byrne's got any of his chips left, and Barry Stokes and Jeff Belcher both will most likely be playing their free hit chips in this next game week. Let's have a look at the spreadsheet, shall we? Shall we do this? Let's have a look at the fixtures and the spreadsheet of Doom that I've created. And I've taken a leaf out of the book of the FPL Black Box guys, and I've taken off the data for the players that are in for consideration for this week's free hit. And I've just compared them across a number of disciplines or statistics, and we'll have a really good look at which of these players we should be looking at picking. Let me get the fixtures up first of all. So the deadline to make sure everyone remembers, 6:30 on Friday. It's Friday deadline. Friday. Don't forget that. A lot of people will. They'll start making the tea and they'll forget about it. I've done it before and I'm keen as anyone on FPL. But get your team sorted out as early as you can on Friday with Arsenal against Southampton. Then we've got Fulham Leeds, Brentford Villa, Palace Everton, Leicester Wolves, Liverpool Forest, Bournemouth West Ham, Newcastle Spurs. Scott, the fixtures there, which teams stand out for you straight away that you want to get in for your free hit?
Yeah, well, I mean, Arsenal, without a shadow of a doubt, at home to the bottom of the table club Southampton, that's a no-brainer. It's just which three you get in on that, which we'll go into a bit more depth. And then you would be looking at Liverpool regardless of what happened last night, but even more so now, at home to Forest is such a tasty fixture. Them two, for me, really do jump out. I think to a certain extent, potentially Newcastle, Spurs, but Newcastle, obviously Spurs are Spurs. You know, they can turn up at any day. Newcastle, I expect a bit of a response though against them. Years gone by, you'd be also looking at Leicester team, but they're a bunch of frauds this season. So, yeah, Arsenal, Liverpool, you'll be getting 6 out of them for your free hits, won't you?
And Southgate took over then.
Got to go back to his Southgate shout, ain't he? Honestly. Let's start off actually by doing team attack versus team defense, and we'll cover off the goalkeeper position first of all. So what I've pulled off here for YouTube watchers and obviously podcast listeners as well is the teams that we might potentially look at investing in defensively for this current game week. Now, I've taken Arsenal out of this because you would expect us to potentially think about investing in them defensively, but they're leaky as anything, and you want 3 attackers from them really. So I actually took Liverpool out from the bottom one as well, because after their performance recently, there's probably no chance you'd want Alisson. You'd want their outfield players as well. And what I mean by defenders, definitely Ramsdale, you wouldn't want in your team. You'd want 3 outfield Arsenal players, etc. So I had a look at Aston Villa, Liverpool, Palace, Newcastle, Wolves, Spurs, Fulham and Bournemouth's expected goals conceded, expected clean sheets. This is all over the last sort of 6 game weeks, so it's between 6 and 8 games for each team, depending on how many double game weeks they've had. But the best performing defence by far is Aston Villa. They've only conceded 2 goals in the last 8 games. And they were top pretty much of every single metric, or top 3 for every single metric. Expected goals conceded, expected clean sheets, actual clean sheets, expected goal difference in their actual goal. They're outperforming their statistics by quite a long way. Their expected goal difference is 3.8 and their actual goal difference is plus 14 over the last 8 games for them, which is pretty mad good. I was concerned about investing in Aston Villa defensively, considering they're playing Brentford away. So it's not the best game in the world. But actually, if you have a look at Brentford's statistics over the last 3, they are third highest for shots out of the 5 teams we'd look at in terms of playing against. So Leeds, West Ham, Brentford, Leicester and Everton, 83 shots, whereas Everton are taking more shots and so are Leeds. On target, 32, inside the box, 59. So they're not blowing anybody away in terms of numbers, considering Everton and Leeds have had more shots on target and in the box than Brentford have. And they've had even more shots than Leicester and West Ham, who have been pretty dire, actually, attacking-wise, looking at these numbers, which opened my eyes a lot, because I wasn't actually considering a Wolves defender to start this week, even against Leicester. But Leicester's numbers are diabolical. I mean, they're the worst out of these 5. They've had apparently 22 shots on target. They've actually only scored 5 goals in 8 games. So they've been awful. And actually Wolves' numbers haven't been too bad at all. They've kept 3 clean sheets. They're pretty much on their numbers in terms of their expectations defensively. So hopefully I've talked through that enough for you to be able to have a quick digest of that, Baz. Anything stick out from you here? Obviously, the green being the good, obviously, for quick visuals. We were looking at, for example, Fulham defensively as an option for Leno or Robinson or Ream, but they've actually played less games than everybody else, and they've had the 4th highest expected goals conceded out of the 5 teams we were expecting to invest in defensively, and they're playing Leeds, who've had more shots than anyone else bar Everton for 3. So yes, and what are your thoughts on potential defences, goalkeepers, Johnston, Sarr versus Martinez, Leno, and Neto?
Hey, Martinez has been doing really well. He was a bit like De Gea for Man United, been saving quite a lot and facing a lot of shots. So that's probably why they got the doing better than what the XG says. So that's my take on that. And I've been quite fortunate. I had Moreno in, and they've got Unai Emery's got his stable back 4 now. He knows what it is. Obviously, Ashley Young's come in for cash, and it looks more defensive and they look more sound. They've got the attacking going on the left, but Ashley Young, in his older age, has gone, right, I'm sitting back, and they've got now a 3 at the back kind of thing when Moreno's going up. So yeah, I think they're looking more stable on that front regarding that. And I like how Liverpool were playing as well, to be honest, with Trent coming inside, and then you've got Henderson coming out as, and I'm doing a football manager term now. Henderson's playing as a Mazzella, and he's playing out. He goes out wide to create that space, and I think it works well. So yeah, but yeah, the stats are great spreadsheet, and I might get you to send it to me so I can do my 651 version of my free hit.
I will. Do you know what, mate? I will, and take screenshots if you want to as well for any of these things. I've got one for defence, midfield, and forward coming up. But from a goalkeeper's perspective, specifically Scott, and obviously you've been looking at your free hit drafts: Palace, Wolves, Villa, Fulham, Bournemouth. Would you look outside of those teams? Would you potentially look at an Alisson, a Pope, or someone like? Or would you be looking at these guys and who takes your fancy?
Yeah, well, when I looked at the fixtures 10 minminutes ago when I did my free hit, as we all know on this podcast, it's chalk and cheese between what I do and what the other two do. Johnston was the one that jumped out at me, I must say. A nice fixture at home to Everton, who seems to be struggling obviously at the moment. It feels like Roy's sorted that defence out a bit. They've had to obviously they conceded against Leeds and they did ride the luck a little bit in the last game as well. But it feels like if they get through that first half, he just tries to keep him solid for 45 and then just try and get the creative plays into the game a bit. And I think Baz mentioned a couple of weeks ago the amount, and I think if anyone watched the Leeds game, Johnson made 6-7 saves. So there's always a chance of getting bonus anyway. So I like that because we'll touch on it with the bigger teams. I don't want one of my bigger team slots to go to a keeper.
Exactly, yeah, completely agree.
So I wouldn't be looking at an Arsenal or a Liverpool at all for that. I've actually, for now, this will make you laugh, it got Everson in goal only because he's cheap and I fully expect Johnson to play. So I'm not thinking he's going to come on. But if he doesn't play and Everson comes on, at the end of the day, you've got to expect Leicester to start doing somewhere. They are at home against Wolves. I know Wolves have picked a bit of form up. But if they're going to win any game, surely it's potentially going to be that one.
So you've got Johnston and Everson as your keepers so far?
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah. Originally mine was Leno, and then I ran these stats, and actually I'm pretty much moving to Johnston. I know Everton have had the most shots out of these other 5 teams that they'd be playing against, and their XG is actually the highest at 11.98, but they've only scored 7 goals in that time. But
it'd be nice to look at the away stats because I know Everton are quite blunt and they don't really score a lot away from home as well. So I think it's a good shout to be fair to Johnston. But I also do like the Leno shout because same again with Johnston, you're going to get save points.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and this is the thing: you are playing these teams that are going to put a lot of shots in. It seems so. I think when I was breaking it down, it's probably going to be Johnston as the goalkeeper. I just don't. I mean, obviously, we're talking about a really good defender. Let's move on to defenders here because obviously Villa, we've just touched on. They've only conceded 2 goals, but we have to then look at Moreno because they're playing Brentford, who are one of the top attacking teams at home, and Villa are away at Brentford. So I don't want to overinvest in their defenders. But I ran the table and I went through some Wolves defenders: Kilman, Dawson, Semedo, and Totti. Totti, actually, funnily enough, had some quite nice statistics. Is points per 90. This is all per 90 minutes that they have played in the last 6 game weeks. So his points were 4.3. They were 4th on our list of selected players. Totti. So
he plays left back as well.
Yeah. So as the backup, as like your 5th defender at 3.8 mil, seems like a really quite a good option, really. Semedo was in the top 3 for big chances created. He was actually second. Only Van Dijk has had. Big chances happened. Only Van Dijk's had more big chances than Semedo in the last 6 game weeks, which was a bit mad. I thought it was odd. I mean, he's obviously not that clinical, Semedo, because he just scored no goals. And got no assists, but whatever. So I ran those numbers again. The Ream Robinson, it ran those guys again. Apparently they're £4.60 each. I love this when this printed off. It's 4.6 mil. It comes up as £4.60. It's hilarious. Robinson, Ream, but actually Kenny Tete is the guy. Is it Kenny Tete? I've gone there, and Is that an old player?
Yeah.
I've completely gone there. Tete. He actually is the guy who stands out more in terms of the numbers of the Fulham defenders. If you wanted to put one of those in, 0.59 in terms of shots per 90. He has more shots in the box. His XG actually exists compared to Riemann Robinson's. The return is up there. His key passes are just as high as Robinson's. If you're going for a Fulham defender, now I've run the statistics, Tete seems to be the guy. So Totti and Tete seem to be good backups, but you get stuck into the Crystal Palace defenders, and Gahey is top for big chances happening and obviously goals. He's the only guy that's actually scored out of these lot. Mitchell's numbers, I've seen a lot of people put Mitchell in. He just doesn't. He's nowhere near Anderson and Gahey really. And Anderson's up there for shots at 0.86 per 90. So. Again, if you're looking at Palace defenders, after running all of these numbers, I mean, you can look at expected points. Gahey's top with 3.89 per 90. So, again, they're not amazing point scores here. But these are, if we're looking at, my takeaway from this was, if you're going for a Wolves defender, you want Totti. If you're going for a Fulham defender, you want Tete. If you're going for a Palace defender, you want Gahey. That's what I'm getting at with all of that. And then we really get into the numbers of these guys who are actually performing really well in terms of an attacking output, which are Trippier, Perisic, Moreno, Van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Robertson. Down here, you can see key passes. Trippier is top with 2.3 per 90, so he's creating a lot of these chances, expected points at 4.1. Perisic was really high up on all of these per 90s in terms of his numbers. Top for shots at 2.4 by quite a long way. In the box at 1.53. He was right up there as well in terms of XG at 0.1. Van Dijk at 0.2 was there as well. They were the only ones really of any sort of note who had decent XGs. Yeah, Perisic's numbers look really quite good. Key passes 1.97 per 90, rather only Trippier with 2.3. And big chances at 0.6. Trent obviously down here as well at 0.92 big chances created per 90, and those numbers have gone up quite a lot. Anyone who watched Monday Night Football last night will have just seen the numbers of the last two games compared to the previous rest of the season for Trent. His expected assists were like 0.7 for the last two games, and his expected assists for the rest of the season was 0.42, which is what the number is here. So he's much, much higher. Hopefully, again, talking through that table's given people the opportunity, you two guys and everyone else watching, chance to digest these. Seems to me you can go for some cheaper backups up here, but Trippier, Perisic stands out. Moreno stands out there with 0.3 on his assists. Has to be Trent over Van Dijk for me, just from watching the last two game weeks, but actually all of season. Van Dijk's right up there. What's your takeaways from this, Baz, in terms of defenders and options? What formation are you going to play in your free hit? 3-5-2? 3-4-3?
3-4-3.
Yeah, so you're going to pick three from here. Scott, I'll come to you on up. So you're prepared for that as well, for your three from here, for starting and your two backups. But yeah, your take on these, Baz?
Surprising. I thought Robinson would be obviously a lot better than what the stats are saying there, to be honest. Because he looked like he was attacking threat, but looking at that, he's non-existent. Semedo, I thought he looks quite an attacking threat, but same again, he's only got one green. So, and it's just the fact that I like fullbacks / wingbacks as my defenders because of potential points for clean sheets and also assists and potential goals. But with Palace's aerial threat from corners, then yeah, Anderson and Gahey, I can't even pronounce his name. So yeah, Gahey got there in the end. Yeah, so they're attacking threats from corners. I think with Elise putting the ball in, I think looks a really good shout to have a centre half there as well. But quite self-explanatory with obviously the big hitters really regarding that. So there's no surprises on Perisic, Trippier, etc. So.
Scott, your take on your three that you would start?
Yeah, so the three I've got in is Trent. Like you said, our last two game weeks, I don't think the guy can defend still. But my days when he gets going as an attacking asset, he's you can't not have him in. We talk about ceilings; he's got a very high ceiling. I've gone for Gahey. I brought him in draft this week. He got me 7 points. And like Baz says there, he looks an aerial threat. You don't think of Palace, and you don't think of the left and right backs bombing up. That's not the way they play. They're going to be more, a threat, like Baz said, with Anderson and Gahey from set pieces. And I've stuck with Trippier, and I know the numbers are not going to be kind to Trippier because he's not in form. Newcastle, I've had a bit of a dip the last game. But I've stuck with him because we're at home. I think it's a nice fixture at home to Spurs.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely a chance for a clean sheet, and there's certainly attacking returns. And I just go back to the Addies. I'm a bit of a TV whore, if I'm honest with you. I got it completely wrong last night with Leeds, but I think they will perform on. Newcastle, I think this season has shown they will bounce back, and Trippier is a big game player against his former club as well. I think he's going to be up for that game. So I've gone for them three. I didn't like Alex Moreno just because I fancy Brentford to score. I think they were unlucky in that last game to not get a goal. I think they hit the woodwork and whatnot. And yes, Perisic, and I'll tell you now, you're not bringing Perisic in for his defensive for his clean sheet because they won't get one because they haven't got one in like 6 weeks. He will get you a couple of points if you're lucky for an assist. And he is a walking yellow card. As someone that's had him in draft all season.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I mean, Brentford's home form, 15 games, 29 goals, 16 conceded. Yeah. So, like, they score 2 a game at home. They've got one of the best attacking numbers at home. So, again, that's what puts you off Moreno, really. But again, like, they still concede most games at Brentford. So, like, you're going for these guys for their attacking output, aren't you? And it's the same with Trent because Liverpool can't defend. So, I think whoever you go for, really, you're just going for it for their attacking numbers, unless you want to stick someone like a Gahey in.
I think Gahey's the one that sticks out as someone that I'm potentially bringing in for a clean sheet.
Yeah, it's. I just don't know if I'd double up on the Palace defense. Do you know what I mean with Johnston and Gahey? I think that's the only downside. One, isn't it? But I might then go for a Wolves player.
If you double up like that and they don't and they concede, then you're like, oh, good. But
I might go Sarr though instead of Johnston and then go Gahey, and that's a potential option as well. I think that pool of people and that sort of structure kind of works either way. I think you won't see a free hit team without Trenton because they're a full. And also, what I would say is that the thing that gets talked about a lot is the positives on his numbers from this, but the system doesn't favour Robertson for attacking numbers. So a lot of people then double up on Trent and Robbo because of the wing backs and the previous and the history. But we've seen
my fear on Liverpool is, would Klopp put Tsimikas or someone else in a left back?
Potentially. We've seen how the system works with Arteta and Pep, where he plays kind of almost like 3 centre halves.
I don't know what you would do. I get it before, but they've only got the league, haven't they?
Yeah, so true. Yeah.
I think again, you just go in Trent. I wouldn't be doubling up on their defence. I think we can get a couple more attackers in moving forward anyway as well. But yeah, I think it's those are the numbers there. Let's move on to midfield. So more options in terms of midfielders to look at.
One of mine's in red. I don't like the look of that. Carry on.
The red's fine, but
it's scary. Red's always scary. Red's never welcoming, is it?
The only reason they're in red is because they've had really limited minutes over the last 6 to 8 games, and their numbers are a little bit skewed because of it. Like Harry Wilson's numbers are amazing, but he's had 6 appearances. 5 have come on as a sub. He's only played 133 minutes. So, yeah, his numbers look decent. And obviously, Dan James can't play against his parent club. So, Wilson stands a chance of being in that team with Willian and Andreas. So, he's an option. Almiron, again, he's only just come back. So, his numbers aren't super, and Traore. I mean, like, Traore's shots is by far the highest. He's 5.34 per 90. But he's only played 118 minutes, and I know he scored 2 goals. So the reason they're in red is just because they're a little bit skewed by minutes. There'll be no free hit team without Salah in it. his numbers are just absolutely they're where they're Salah. So he'll be such a heavy captain. It's going to be mad. No surprises, really. Martinelli versus Saka. I had a look at this, by the way. I've not put any statistics up on here. I was really intrigued to have a look at Martinelli with Nketiah and Martinelli without Nketiah. And Martinelli with Nketiah, they played from game week 17 to game week 24 or 25 together. And Martinelli only returned in the first 2 of those. Then he blanked in 6 in a row. And then he had that 1 goal that he scored against Villa in the 94th minute where he didn't start, which was a skewed number. But then without Nketiah, he outperformed Saka by quite a long way in terms of the numbers. So if you're going to make a choice moving forward, and this is not a free hit conversation, this is a moving forward conversation, Martinelli, for me, offers way better value for money than Saka. I actually don't think it's that close. I know a lot of people are saying it's a debate, but Saka will be making way for me next game, in game week 33, to make sure Salah's in my team rather than Martinelli, and that's nailed on for me. If I was wildcarding, there'd be no Saka. Martinelli is quite clearly, you can see by the numbers here, in the last 6 to 8 game weeks since Jesus' return and since Nketiah's injury and Trossard has played, he's outperformed Saka on pretty much every single metric. So anyway, it's like the beginning of the season all over again, because this is the formation and the team that they play. But Ødegaard, again, we threw him in here because he's potentially an option. He's returned some numbers, some decent numbers, but it's going to be two or three Arsenal attackers. I'd have thought. 3 Arsenal attackers. I'd have thought. It's just which ones you go for. Eze outperforming Elise in terms of attack over the last 6 game weeks. Last week, expected goal involvement 0.84 per 90, whereas Elise's 0.4, so it's double. After last game week's completely thrown those numbers after his 2 goals, which is really annoying. So I went for Elise, as I think you did as well, Scott, and lost that flip. I lost that flip badly. Never mind. Jordan Ayew ticking along quite nicely, but not performing as well as Eze again. Maddison, classic standard numbers across the board. Yeah. Key passes, he's 3rd, but he's just up there as well. We had a question coming from Martin. Thanks for putting this one in. We'll touch on it as well when we're talking about Bournemouth here, because their form's been excellent. They've won 4 in the last 6, something along those lines. Solanke and Billing on a 2-week pump for 32 and 33. If you're going to potentially wildcard in 34. I'll come to you on that, Baz, in a second. But Billing's up there with numbers that are decent. And Ben Rama is top 3 on metrics: shots on target, expected goals, expected goal involvement, actual goal involvement, big chances created, and expected assists and expected points. He's in the top 3 for all of those things.
Just can't defend.
I can't defend at all. I mean, it was basically his fault for both goals. I mean, the guy is so dozy. I mean, he actually looked at Ødegaard. He looked at him, and he still didn't track back. What's wrong with you? As Billing and Solanke, cover that question, and then talk to me through who you think your midfielders are going to be, or who you would recommend and why.
So the Billing and Solanke option, I like it. I would do it, but it is the fear factor for me. I'm up there quite high. If I was chasing the pack and I was in Alex or Scott's position, then yeah, I would definitely do it. But then who's a striker that you would get rid of? And the midfielder, yeah, you probably could get a cheap option, get rid of a cheap option for that. But it's the striker situation. The strikers are playing really well doing well this season. But I would definitely look at it, doing it, yeah, for 2-week punt, definitely. Midfielders wise, I do like a Harry Wilson shout. He looked really good. Maybe because he's Welsh, but yeah, his numbers are really good. I know you said they skewed and all this because of the minutes, but he had a good relationship with Dan James, so it's a shame that he obviously can't play. And it was like they were playing with a false 9, and they're all intertwining with each other as well, and it looked really good, and the defense didn't know what to do with him. And I agree with you on the Martinelli shout over Saka. To be honest, I've always been a fan of Martinelli. I've not been that keen on Saka. I think I don't know why. Might be because he's English. I don't know. But I've always liked Martinelli. When he first came to England, he played a couple of games for Arsenal. I thought, yeah, he looks a good player. And then he was out of the squad, and now he's obviously reaping the rewards from that. I still fancy Elise over Eze, to be honest. Don't know. Ask me why. It's just probably because he takes corners, gives you the option for that, and he takes free kicks where it's either one of them that takes it, but I think Lise takes control on that. Been saying for Ben Rama for quite a while. He takes penalties as well, is always key.
I think with the Elise Eze thing, what you're saying there is right in the sense that Eze's nowhere near Elise's expected assist, big chances created numbers. Eze's third for big chances created on this list at 0.54. To give that context, Salah's at 0.58. Expected assists at 0.29 per 90. Only Ben Rama and Salah are better than that. It's just he's right up there. He's a good pick still. He's not a bad pick at all. He's a good pick.
One more thing before Scott looks at this.
I want you 5, Scott. I want you 5 midfielders.
Yeah, I didn't think Gakpo played well last night. He scored, yeah, but what did he do? Not really a lot. Thought Nunes came on and actually did more than what Gakpo did. But that's just my take on it. I might have just been blinkered by it, but he didn't really look. He didn't offer a lot.
To be fair,
he scored a nice little tap in, but yeah,
it didn't really register with me. I can't lie. So yeah, maybe he didn't register with me, so that probably says it all, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Scott, your take on some of these numbers? Saka versus Martinelli. You're going for 2 Arsenal midfielders. Salah, obviously, no brainer. I'd have thought. What do you think of Ben Rama? Over to you.
Yeah, so just really quickly, I'll touch on the Bournemouth thing.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. I just disagree massively with what Baz said. I think it's a crazy question. You know what? No question's a bad question, but that was all
two week punt to then wildcard them out in 34.
Yeah, I hate it. Absolutely hate it, mate. But we're so blinkered as football fans. Yeah, they beat Spurs 3-2. They won 1-0 the game before against a really poor Leicester. I wouldn't be doubling up on them. Bloody hell! I think we need to just chill out a bit. It's Bournemouth still.
Oh yeah, I do agree with you on that, Scott. I wouldn't, I wouldn't shy away from maybe one of them for a 2.
I would get Billinging, but I wouldn't be wasting one of those forward spots on Dominic Solanke.
I agree.
Let's just take a minute sometimes.
Even though he's 3rd or 4th in form for strikers.
Yeah.
I just don't really rate him, to be honest.
Yeah, you've only got 3 strikers though, mate.
Yeah, I know, but it's one of them. But yeah. I do agree. But I do agree. But I think if for a differential pick, if you want to have both to potentially catch up, then
yeah, but it's not like Bournemouth for won the last 5 or 6 games, is it?
I think 4 or 6. But yeah, but it's I think in terms of if you wanted to punt on one of them, I don't think you could do a lot far worse. And I agree with actually both of you in that sense. One thing you are agreeing on here is that it's Billing over Solanke if you're going to punt. You're not going to waste one of the striking options on it. I think you can for 32 and 33 before Brighton double in 34, for an example. If you wanted a Billing in for a solid March when Brighton blank in 32 and then have a tough fixture in 33. Is it tough in 33? No, it's Forest in 33, isn't it? Anyway, whatever. But if you wanted to go for him for 2 weeks, then you could do. Your 5 in midfield, Scott.
Yeah, Theo Walcott.
Roll back the years. Who's Sven?
Rio, isn't it? Anyway, Saka. I have gone for Saka and Martinelli at the moment, doubled up. Martinelli for the reasons Baz said. He won't do anything because he's coming back into my team, and I've brought him out and every decision with Martinelli has been wrong for me this season. But yeah, obviously Saka missed penalty. I really felt bad for him after what happened in the Euros when he did that. But still, he looks okay still. That Saka could easily get changed to Odegaard, though, at some point. Martinelli is getting stuck there. Elise, I agree. Watching the highlights, I think he hit the bar, or he should he was very unlucky, and he looked good. Don't get me wrong, Eze's second goal was a worldie of a strike. But yeah, I think Elise across the season has probably looked better than Eze. So I think I'm still going to stick with Elise on that one. And my 5th is I've got Almiron in at the minute.
His Almiron's expected points is 6.65 per 90 off the minutes he's played, and Ben Rama's is 6.55. So like Almiron's right up there in terms of the numbers. It has to be said. He and obviously he had a bit of previous this season. Like Harry Wilson's at 9.4 is just ridiculously high.
But don't forget for Ben Rama playing the mighty Bournemouth. So I mean,
well, we're not putting Bournemouth defenders in now. That would be crazy.
What about Neto, goalkeeper?
On the bench. But no, it's I think it's interesting. So we're at the moment for you. You're on Salah, Martinelli, Saka, Elise, and Almiron. Yeah. Who gets benched, or are you playing?
Well, Almiron's sat there at the minute.
Yeah,
but I'm having issues.
I think we've got exactly the same four starting at the moment, though, Scott, in midfield.
Right. Okay. I know, and I'll be honest. I know you guys have been putting your free hit teams in. I've not looked at any on purpose, so I'm guessing this is going to be my one. Is quite standard across.
I think this week is going to be, if you're free hitting, it's going to be an incredibly standard template.
Yeah.
I mean, we've narrowed it down to how many players on each of these slides, and some of them I've put on there. I mean, like lovely to see a player like Ramsey and Buendia on here. They aren't going to get in your teams really. Generally speaking, neither's Maddison at the moment. It's just they're lovely to put on there. Gakpo's never getting picked.
I think Jordan Ayew's won a raffle to be on this spreadsheet. To be honest with you,
he's done lovely things. Ayew, to be honest, what an absolute chap. We'll move on to forwards because there's obviously less of them, which makes it even easier to have a look at. Jesus, Watkins, Isak, Kane, Darwin, Jota, Tony Solanke, Iheanacho, Edouard, Wilson, Diego Costa, and Vinicius. I mean, Diego Costa and Vinicius are on here. I mean, again, they're never getting picked, but like they're on here because they're the striking options to these teams that are going to play. Jesus has been fantastic since he's come back in, and a lot of talk about him dropping deeper and this, that, and the other. He's still top for XG, actual goals off all these other strikers, 1.47 per 90. Goal involvement 1.47. Only Wilson's excuse me. Sorry, only Wilson's above him in terms of actual goal involvement at the minutes that he's played. 1.51 per 90. But Jesus is up there, expected points at 9.89. His actual points at 10.29. So he's right up there. Watkins is on absolute fire, as we all know. He's second in terms of points at 7.8, and all the other metrics basically second, near enough. And not to labour the point on statistics too much, but shots, it's Kane, it's Isak, but then it's Wilson in terms of key passes and actual creativity. So as you can see here from the numbers, Isak seems to be almost outperforming Wilson in a lot of metrics for the actual shots and on target and in the box and XG, whereas Wilson seems to be outperforming Isak in terms of creativity. So does that mean that is that how kind of they're working as a partnership potentially, if they are working together as well? Strikers, Baz, is our Jesus Watkins kind of no-brainers, or are we pushing a no-brainer there for Villa away at Brentford too much? But is his form too much? Over to you.
I think you can't overlook the form he's in. We keep saying, oh, it's going to end. It's not. I was thinking he might end because Southgate was there watching him, but no, he played unbelievable. He just absolutely ran the defence ragged, and this is a Newcastle defence that had a really good before the World Cup, was unbelievable, and now they're just looking ropey. So Jesus, I'd have him in mind. Watkins, and I wanted Diego Costa in there because he's getting back to fitness. Everything's coming through him, and he got lucky on his goal and everything like that. But like I said, everything's coming through him. Leicester don't concede like Billy O, so it's worth a little punt on him, even though you're probably not going to have him in.
It's
let everyone just anyone that doesn't want. He just got his first goal of the season. But carry on, worth getting him in.
He's going to hit form. He's going to hit form. He's got flames.
I can't lie, for me, after watching Jota last night and getting dropped. For me, it's nailed on Jesus Watkins and Jota. I haven't, don't get me wrong, the other options, Kane, he just constantly delivers. He's the first blank in 5. Last time he's just soaking 200 points a season already. He's a phenomenon. He just doesn't get talked about enough. He's been unbelievable this season, Kane. And then you've got the gamble of the Isak, Wilson. Don't mind either of them against Spurs, not at all. But again, I just think there are just better options. I don't really mind Solanke either and these other players, but they just are. It's Jesus Watkins and Jota for me. It's just so nailed on. I can't go any further than those guys. Scott,
no, copy paste on that one.
Yeah,
if last night didn't happen, Jota probably wouldn't even be in my thought process. But yeah, unbelievable. And I think the Watkins thing, it's the whole, let's not look at the fixtures, let's look at the player and the form he's in. What I really liked, I didn't actually watch the game live, but I watched the highlights of Match of the Day, and I loved his interview afterwards. He was quite honest. He was like, look, what I used to do was I used to come in to get involved too much. I used to make runs out wide. The managers just told me, get him behind, use my pace and score, and that's what I'm doing. And he was unlucky not to get more in that game, wasn't he? You can't not put a player in when he's in form. It's bitten us how many times in the past. Get him in. And like you say with Kane, I looked at him for about 4.2 seconds. He's going to get you 6 points, but he doesn't seem to be doing much more than that.
Yeah, I agree. Without any further ado, let's look at my free hit team, shall we? And where I was at when we spoke last night. So for podcast listeners, it is I've got Leno in goal at the moment. But this is before I looked at these statistics, so I'm actually probably going to move Leno and Anderson out for Gahey and potentially Sarr, looking at the defence. But Leno and Anderson were in, but it might turn into Johnston and like Semedo or something along those lines. Trippier and Trent, for me, pretty nailed on in that team. Salah, obvious captain. Saka and Martinelli and Elise. Jota, Jesus and Watkins, and then a bench of Neto, Eze. I put Ream on there. Again, he might change. And Totti. Just nice and cheap. A couple of things might change in there. Like I say, goalkeeper, one defender, and a couple of players on the bench. But in terms of the midfield and strikers and Trent and Trippier, it's relatively nailed. And I think we're going to see something incredibly template across the board on that.
It's not going to be me against Alex, against Baz, against other players in the world. It's going to be a heads up free hitters versus non-free hitters this week, isn't it?
Yep, 100%. And the other big thing, and this is where we need to cover off this question now, really, because we had your competitor at the top of the league, Dave Burns, sent us a question: is Salah now a must-have for the rest of the season? Is he a must-have again? I mean, like we said, we always talk about no one's a must-have other than probably Haaland, but he's
delivering.
This is the player this week that's going to kill you if you're not free hitting.
Yeah,
Salah's the player that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
He's going to kill you this week if you don't have him. So you need to take -4s and whatever else for me if you're at the top of a league. And, for example, like if you're Dave Byrne against Baz, sorry, but I'm obviously chatting about the league, but if I'm Dave Byrne right now, like last week, he wasn't an idiot. He took a -4 and got Haaland in and captained him. Dave Byrne was definitely going to go 2 weeks without Haaland or 3 weeks without Haaland here. He was as well. And then he saw his performance and went, no, he's in. And it was the right decision. He got him in. He's going to do the same with Salah this week. He'll take a -4 and he'll get Salah in. And he'll captain him because it's the right thing to do for when you're top of a mini league and you want to beat your mates. You can't not get him in this week. So the answer to the question, Dave Byrne, is yes, I think he is. It just depends who else you can have. The statistics for Salah have kind of been there most of the season, but he just hasn't really been delivering, and now he's delivering. So
I think when you look at this free hit and why I'm loving free hitting this week is because you look at your fixtures, isn't it? That Arsenal and Liverpool fixtures, and to a certain extent, maybe even that like Newcastle, that Trippier fixture, and Everton, Palace as well. Your fixtures are really nice, and like there could be a massive swing this week between like free hitting teams and non-free hitting teams. I think there could be a big gap.
Baz, obviously we'll look at your differential free hit team in a minute, which I know Scott will have a right nice laugh at. But any further comments on this, or should we move on?
I just don't like Trippier on that.
So what is it about? Is it just his form? Or
it's just because it's against Tottenham,
English.
and we keep banging on about Kane going to score. Well, why are you putting Trippier in for a defender?
Attacking returns. I think the only teams, if I looked at these right now for clean sheets, if I had to predict what teams are going to keep clean sheets this week, it would be probably Crystal Palace, maybe Wolves, and maybe Liverpool. Liverpool's still crap. They're defending. They're still rubbish. I wouldn't put money on them.
What were Forest's XG at home against Man United? With Man United's shocking defence was 0.36.
They still probably should have
at home. Yeah, they should have done. Yeah, Maguire playing volleyball.
I love that. Well, he's the only player I've ever known in my life to go with his arm for a header every time. He always heads the ball like this. He's
probably would have fallen over with that blockhead, probably.
Honestly, he's just
had to do it for balance. It's
ridiculous, isn't it? But I think there's only probably a couple of teams like Trent's only in there for attacking returns, really, because I can't rely on Liverpool for clean sheets.
I think when you look at fantasy football as well, I know I do, and I don't know if anyone else does it. Trippier's in there because he's going to get me attacking returns, but it's also because Sunday at 2 p.m. I'm going to be sat on my ass watching the game, and he's quite an exciting player to watch.
Yeah. And also, the other thing that has to be said about Trips is that is there a greater alternative that I could put in my free hit team that not every other person who isn't free hitting has? Now, I know it's a defensive move, but there's no one else that makes me go like, God, they're better than Trippier as an option this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and actually a load of everyone who doesn't have a free hit this week has Trippier. So it's kind of almost like a blocking move for like for example, for you this week, Baz. Dave Byrne will have Trippier. I've not checked his team, but you won't put him in your team. If Trips delivers, then he can hurt you. Whereas, can you put anyone else in your team defensively who can hurt him? It's
Bueno. I'll get Bueno in.
It's not even playing, Baz. Totti all day long. Let's look at your differential team for a laugh.
There we go. Trippier's in it, I bet.
Can you imagine him? He's the ultimate not differential, isn't it? Hey, Scott, by the way, how are you liking this?
Jack!
It's a differential, mate.
Jordan Henderson! Oh my God! I'd rather have Dean Henderson.
less than 5% owned, aren't they? That's where it is, and Henderson gives you an assist option
every 4 weeks.
Look at his previous form.
By the way,
look at Diego Costa's previous form, like 5 years ago at Chelsea. That was
look at Jota's then. Then he scored 2.
Do you know what though?
Whenever
it's true, and I've got to say, actually, there's a couple of players in here that I really like. And there's a couple of funny ones in there because the Costa pick's brilliant, but Semedo, Wilson, Jota, I don't mind Solanke. I don't mind Billing. Elise. Xhaka's getting some decent numbers. I mean, you've only put him in because you're trying to get, under 5% owned. You obviously never put Xhaka in your team where you can have any other Arsenal midfielder. But Mitchell at the back, he's your differential. Palace defender, Leno in goal. It's not bad. Tierney's going to potentially play over Zinchenko because if he's injured still. It's not a bad team at all. In a couple of areas, there's a couple of funny. Yeah, Henderson's funny, isn't it? The good old Jordan. You've just said he's playing more defensive as well earlier, which is what I
said he plays as a Mazzella, so he's going to put crosses in, isn't he?
Of course. No, you're right. You are.
I didn't say Mazzella defense because there's no such thing on Football Manager.
Apologies to all you FM lovers that's there. Just to Salah captain, I'd assume. Maybe the other options, Martinelli. Any other shouts for captaincies this week?
Jesus,
Dominic Solanke.
Love that. Costa.
Yeah.
Let's move on to game week. Oh, good old Jordan. Let's move on to the midweek madness, shall we? Game week 33, Tuesday the 25th of April at 6 o'clock, the deadline. We've got every game televised on BT Sport, for everyone who has BT Sport. First game is Wolves against Palace. Then we've got Villa Fulham, Leeds Leicester. Then we've got Forest Brighton, Chelsea Brentford, West Ham Liverpool, City Arsenal. Big game. Everton Newcastle, Spurs Bournemouth, Southampton Bournemouth, and then Spurs against my beloved half of my scarf, Man United. So what I've done moving forward here is have a look at some fixtures. Because a lot of people be looking at potentially wildcarding in game week 33 if they have their wildcard left. And let's reset that to fixtures. So I wanted to look at the difficulty for the rest of the season for fixtures and who we should be looking at investing in. Because also this ties in quite nicely to free hit teams. If you aren't free hitting, then who should you be investing in? So let's not forget Brighton have got 2 extra double game weeks to go into there. We've talked about Brighton enough on the podcast, I think. So we'll move on from Brighton. Liverpool we've discussed. It's Trent, Salah, and potentially plus any others if you wanted to. Manchester City, obviously Haaland. Additional to Haaland, any other players you would be looking at to bring in on a wild card in 33? Just briefly on City.
I think I'd look at Jack Grealish still, if I'm honest with you. I think he's in really good form. He's linking up really well with Haaland. I'd mention KDB, but I think you'd have your money tied up in Haaland and Salah. So I don't think you'd go them. So I'd maybe look at Grealish, but I wouldn't look at the defence because and does anyone keep clean sheets? But they can't keep clean sheets either, can they?
1 goal a game they concede. Baz, any other players to add to that?
I know obviously Scott said don't keep clean sheets, but if I did have to pick a City defender, it would be John Stones at the moment.
He's doing that Cancelo sort of role, isn't he, at the moment?
Yeah.
One of the things that came in was about Mahrez. I know Callum said, will Mahrez get a league game now? City are through in the Champions League. And Mahrez still isn't starting in the Champions League. He started in the league. So it's again, I don't mind Mahrez as a differential pick if you wanted to chase.
Well, apparently they're not for in the Champions League, mate, because he brought Haaland off at half time, so you still must be a bit worried about that.
It's what an absolute luxury that was. Like,
not when you chase another hat trick to win 80 quid. Come on,
that's very frustrating for you. That with their fixture congestion, the FA Cup semi-final, and then the rest of it's just what luxury Pep's got to be able to do that. It's after that draw after Arsenal bottled 2-0 leads in a row. It's like it's advantage to City, isn't it? But yeah, Mahrez he did really well for me earlier in the season coming in, so I don't mind him as a differential pick. Just quite expensive compared to the others. Man United again. These guys are all, obviously they've got another City as well as Man U both got another double game week to throw in there. I still don't trust our defence. I mean, I know we just kept a clean sheet against Forest, but Dalot scored his first goal in however long. You can go Dalot if you wanted to do so, but he gets bonus points from going forward generally, but don't expect 14 points from him every single week.
Shaw should be back on 33 anyway. If people still got Shaw. Yeah,
and he should be. If he's not 33, he'll be 34. So I'd be surprised if he isn't in for there. And yeah, play Eriksen's back, so Bruno plays more advanced when it's Eriksen, Casemiro, and him. They haven't lost the game playing as a 3, which is they're just quality. Martial's getting his minutes managed because Ten Hag's massively scared about everyone getting injured. But yeah, so again, we can look at those for you can put a couple of those guys in moving forward if you wanted to do so. Wait on Rashford's fitness, and yeah, we've kind of covered the rest of these guys off already, really, for options for. So let's have a look at your wildcard team, Baz. Shall we? Baz happy put a wild. Baz isn't wildcarding, by the way.
I don't mind, yeah.
Or
for people that might want to start playing.
Yeah.
Probably catch me up quite quick, to be honest.
Yeah,
absolutely. There'll be me and you competing with them, Scott, I think. For podcast listeners, can you read out your potential wildcard draft
Yeah, so basically you were just basically saying Man U's defence is shocking, and I've gone double Man U defence. So yeah, so I've gone De Gea in goal, and Everson is my other goalkeeper. Defence, I've gone Trent, Alex Moreno, Trippier, Estupiñán, and Shaw. Midfield, Salah, Grealish, Mitoma, McAllister, Rashford, and then a front three of Watkins, Haaland, and Isaac.
It's the Kane question, isn't it? We'll just cover this off because I know you've mentioned this before, but Harry Kane's got not the best fixtures in the world for the rest of the season, but off the reverse fixtures he got 40 odd points and 5 goals and 2 assists. He's been so consistent all season. Man U at home, Liverpool away, Palace at home, Villa away, Brentford home, Leeds away. They don't seem like good fixtures. Everyone's kind of having Kane be the person to give way for Salah. Do you think that's wise? Do you think that's the right? Because again, so would you not try and fit him in and maybe get rid of someone cheaper?
But who are you going to get rid of? You'll have to either go quite cheap at the back for defence or cheap in midfield. Yes, there's quite a lot of options in midfield wise, but defence wise, you wouldn't have a Trippier then. You wouldn't have a Trent Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, or an Estupiñán. You'd probably have like a Totti, an Emerson, or a Soufal or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where these defenders here, potential you've got a clean sheet and the potential attacking returns, and quite a lot of these are doubling in 34.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I'd get rid of Kane for that reason.
I think the big thing for that as well is that if you are wildcarding in 33 to bench boost in 34, I think this is right. I think if you're wildcarding in 33 to not bench boost in 34, I think just bear in mind, I think a lot of people are transferring Kane out, and I he has delivered consistently all season. But are you going to captain him? Potentially not. You'll have 3 premiums in your team, and you're only going to captain one of them, and it's probably going to be Haaland and Salah. So you're going to carry him for 6 to 10 points. It's just an interesting one because I think he'll still be the second highest scoring striker in the last half of the season, or maybe third with Watkins, depending how well he does. Scott, your thoughts on Kane?
Yeah, I don't think it's that much of it's a risk, but I don't think the downside is too bad because he's not been Kane of old. Kind of last season, he's been tick along nicely. I don't mind Isaac, to be honest with you, he's looked good. But I would probably do the Kane out Salah in at the moment, but we could be sat here in a couple of weeks just saying something completely different because that's football.
Yeah, I think if I can, I'd want to keep Kane. I think everyone's. And don't get me wrong, I get it. He's not massively smashing the numbers week in, week out, but he is delivering every week in, week out. And some weeks he just absolutely kills you, doesn't he?
All I will say is he must be doing all right because I've got him captain my set and forget team, and I'm second or third in that. So
me too, exactly the same. And I mean, if you have a look at points overall for FPL for this season, Haaland 227, Kane 200, then it's Salah and Martinelli at 180.
I think the problem is Salah and Kane are playing in teams that for them are underperforming this season. So
Right.
you don't see it as much there.
Whereas... that's it. I think people will miss it. If I can have all these top, if I can have these top 5 players in my team, then I'm going to do it. If I can try and get it to work. But captains for 33 before we wrap up and say good night, because it's I think it's I don't think it's the easiest game week for a captain.
Tough one, isn't it?
Mid-City are at home against Arsenal.
Well,
Arsenal can't keep clean sheets. I think we'll see just a lot of Haalands.
On my team there, I did Watkins as captain.
Yeah, well, home to Fulham again. I think that's a more than viable captain. Anybody else, Scott, really stand out to you?
No,
Salah away at West Ham.
Potentially, I think you've got to wait and see because West Ham are picking up a little bit. It's going to be. I think your decision could change. I don't think many people will steer away from Haaland, will they? Let's be honest with you. I'd be tempted to go. I'm off to the Leeds game. I'd be tempted to go for a Leeds player just for banter, but
Sinister.
God. Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything this week, other than differential.
Yeah.
Who is your?
Who?
I think you have to have Costa as your differential.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think you should be allowed.
He is
to
one of
anybody
them,
else.
but yeah, if someone picks mine, then I'll have to have Diego. But he's got a potential knock, so he might not play.
I'm going Jordan Henderson for mine.
I love that. I mean, can I shotgun Jota at 0.8% owned? Because I mean, like, that's the most unbelievable difference. I think it's just too easy to pick, isn't it? Let's be honest. To go for someone like Jota.
You're winning the little league that we've got going on here.
We don't need to talk about that.
Let's not talk about Anthony Gordon, shall we? Bless him. I mean, it's just I had Jota written down, so I've gone for Jota. Scott, any advance?
Put Baz's team up again.
Let's have a look. Here we go.
I'm not going Jordan Henderson, the real England captain. I'm not offering.
Not picking Johnson.
Johnson.
Johnson. Oh, do you know what? I'll go with my boy Elise. I like that.
Like it. Good. Love it. Az, you're on Costa?
Yeah, go on then. I was going to go Slanky, but yeah, I'll go for Diego Costa. Why not?
No, Martin's got Slanky.
I tell you what, if Costa doesn't start, you can have Solanke. How about that?
Okay, deal, yeah.
Oh, like God, I didn't get that with Scott McTominay last week, did I?
We didn't pick two.
Casemiro's still banned.
You got Casemiro.
What about
I'm such a half scarf. Let's be honest.
Yeah, you are. You're not even watching that game. You're at the darts.
I am as well. I can't wait as well. I prefer to be at the darts as well. West Ham. For me, I like that home game against Liverpool, so I might look there. But if not, then I was looking at the Villa game, Baz, and I really liked your shout of Ramsey. So I'll go Ramsey.
So I had.
I knew he did. That's what I went through. I'm such a horrible human.
Blocked me like with Barnes.
Blocked you. Well, you had Barnes for me. He was injured. Yeah, go on. I've gone for Jacob. Scott.
Oh God, yeah, differential for this one. Sorry.
You can have Gordon if you want.
Good one. Do you know what I'm going to go for? James Ward-Prowse.
Oh yeah, against Bournemouth. You really don't like Bournemouth this week.
I hate
Bournemouth. Baz, to wrap up.
Sinistera.
Oh God. Right, we've really covered ourselves in glory. Right, everyone, we've done it. We've done an hour and a bit. So thanks ever so much everyone for joining us this week. Don't forget to thank you for bearing with my voice as well. By the way, don't forget to like and subscribe, all of the usual places. And my voice is worn out. Thanks a lot, Baz. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Thank you.
And bye for now.